Let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to um first talk, small talk, the first of the series that we want to present. We look forward to having more of these conversations going forward. And the first small talk, we want to throw some light on micro and seed VCs and shine some light on people who work from the micro VC space. That's one of the key objectives of doing this small talk. We hope to continue doing this as a series over the next quarters, and we hope you guys would participate. And the first one we have is an exciting one, on deep tech, and I have some of the best investors in the deep tech space and the enterprise space joining us today. I have with me Arjun from Speciali Invest, who's a partner at Speciali. And Arjun comes with like 15 years of experience in technology. He's been an entrepreneur, the founder and director of products at Traveliari. And he also has been working on tech and product teams over the last 10 plus years. So Arjun comes with a strong technology background, and he's been investing actively as an angel and now as a partner at Speciali. I also have with me Arun. Arun, sometimes I used to think Arun could have become a lifer at IBM, but he almost did that at IBM, and he is a partner at Arali Ventures. And Arali Ventures is focused on investing in enterprise and deep tech at pre-seed and seed stage. And Arun also comes with an experience as an entrepreneur, as an investor, and the technology first approach. Great, Arun. Thanks for joining us. And I also have Deepak. And I also have with me Deepak. Deepak has been in the ecosystem for long. He's worked with Nirvana. He's worked as an investment banker, and currently, he's an AVP at Idea Spring Capital, and which actively invests in enterprise deep tech companies. And I'm glad to have all three of them on the panel today, and look forward to an exciting discussion. Thanks, Deepak. Thanks, Arjun, for joining us.
Thank you, Vinod, for having
Thanks,
me.
Vinod. Pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Vinod. Happy to be on this on Small Talk.
Thank you. I just wanted to try and keep this format something that also people want to know what is that all of us are also doing at the same time, right? So I just want to start off with maybe Arjun to introduce a little more about Speciali and talk about maybe one portfolio firm of his, so that people get a context of what is that each of us do when we talk of seed stage, micro stage VCs. I'll get started with Arjun. Arjun, all yours.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining this Thursday morning, right? Excited to be here. So I'm a founding partner at Special Invest. So we are a 3.5-year-old firm doing early stage deep tech investments. We're a seed fund investing at the very earliest stage of a development of a company, right? Which typically means pre-revenue, in a lot of cases also means pre-product, right? When there is a team, when there is a concept, and maybe there's an early MVP of a product or a technology piece that a founding team comes up with, and we are happy to invest at that very, very early stage, right? We look at deep tech and break it down into broadly two subsectors, right? Software and hardware. On the software side, we are acting in enterprise software companies, B2B SaaS sort of sectors, right? But looking for specific innovation and disruption on the technology aspect in these particular businesses, right? Which means we are looking for technology depth in terms of new emerging trends like AI, machine learning, right? Cloud infrastructure, security, augmented reality, virtual reality, and a bunch of other technology aspects that are emerging and growing very fast to solve specific enterprise B2B problems, right? I would say about close to 2/3 of our portfolio will have is focused on this segment for us, right? 1/3 of our focus is also on innovation and technology disruption on the industrial and enterprise hardware segment. Now, this is again a broad bucket, but again, we're looking for innovative products and technologies getting built across domains, right? In, let's say, electric vehicles, it could be semiconductor technology, it could be, robotics, it could be space technology, it could be medical devices, right? In all of these segments, whatever innovation is happening in hardware, right, as well as some combination, all of these, the world is being, powered by software. So software components will always be there, I believe, in most of these as well. They're a hardware first sort of an approach, right? So this is kind of the broad sectors that we are looking at for investing. We've been around, like I said, for about 3+ years, invested in upwards of 10 companies so far, looked at thousands of companies, 2,000+ companies over this time frame, right, to evaluate and find these 10+ companies, right? We operate at a pace of about 3 to 4 companies a year, which means invest over a period of 4 years. So the intent is to do 5 to 6 more companies over the next year or so, right, of our current fund life cycle, right? Our check size can start as small as $100,000 to $200,000 and can go up to, close to $1 million in the odd case as well, right, when we invest. That is the construct of the fund from a people perspective, like I think the introducements, right? I've been an entrepreneur before this, been in the startup technology ecosystem for about close to 18 years now, right? Started as an engineer, moved to become a product manager in an internet company, right? So I've seen building at scale, then went on to become an entrepreneur myself, which gave me some degree of understanding of what all it takes to build a business and scale a business, right? And I've been actively angel investing over last 5 to 6 years, which led to the formation of Speciale Invest, along with my partner, Vishesh Rajaram, right? Who comes from a venture investing background, comes from a finance background. Both of us go a long way back to business school about 13, 14 years ago. And that's kind of the team. We are operating out of Bangalore and Chennai, but we are investing in companies that are building global products, right? So we have active networks built out of course, India, where we operate out of, but also in Israel and in the US, right? And obviously, we try to take inspiration and learning the West in terms of these cutting edge innovative markets for us to learn what is deep tech and invest in the best entrepreneurs building these products out of here, right? Small flavor of companies that are there in our portfolio include companies building voice AI, conversational AI platforms on the SaaS side, cloud infrastructure optimization, automation platforms, right? And AR, VR on the web, content creation platforms, right? AI, machine learning platforms that enable retail, e-commerce platforms for better decision making, and logistics on the e-commerce retail side are some flavors on the SaaS side, right? On the hardware side, we have done space technology companies, right? Looked across the gamut and said, what are all our innovations that are happening? We need data capture and data analysis coming from satellite companies. We have done something in that space. We're doing satellite communication as well as satellite to ground communication technologies using new innovative ways. And we're doing launch vehicles for small satellites, right? Built in a very innovative manner, right? We've also done robotics for manufacturing automation, right? One of them we have done with our close friend here, Arun, as co-investors, right? We know of on, right? One of the companies, I will point out here, which is genuinely innovative and probably is ideal also to talk today, because I was up last night for the SpaceX NASA launch.
Yeah.
For the first human mission, right? Unfortunately, weather did not permit that. Hopefully that'll happen on Saturday. That is one, example of where we can take inspiration from the West and what innovation is happening there, and we can find similar companies that can be built out of India for very specific context. So one company I'll point out is a company called Agnikul that we've invested about 1.5 years ago, right? Which is a launch vehicle for small satellites, small and nano satellites to be sent to lower Earth orbit, right? This launch vehicle is built using 3D printing technologies and in a modular Lego-like fashion that enables super fast, super cheap, and high frequency manufacturing of these small rockets, right? Which makes it highly affordable for satellite players to go to lower Earth orbit and for launch, right? This is a company that is being built out of IIT Madras with great advisors coming from the IIT Madras ecosystem as well as from the ISRO ecosystem, and the founders have strong background in this domain, right? Just wanted to point out one particular company which both brings in the flavor of how done from the global ecosystem and what type of innovation that we are looking to build out here, right? So super excited about Agnikul. Of course, super excited about all the 10 plus companies in the portfolio. This one maybe is even more topical for today. I thought I'd highlight that.
Great. Thanks, Arjun.
Pause right now and there.
Yeah. Thanks, Arjun. I think, good. I think it's on the right time, especially the 2 a.m. yesterday's launch had happened, I think it would have been like missing. But yeah, I think it'll happen. And I think that's great news that literally, Indian companies are doing rocket science at this stage, so that's great to hear. And, I think we're going to discuss some of those in the questions again, and I'll come back to it. I'd request, Arun to give a brief intro about Arali, and talk about one of your companies in any of the spaces.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vinod. Yeah, so thanks for this opportunity. It's exciting to actually talk about deep tech and what we do. So briefly on Arali. Arali is again a seed fund that is focused on what we'd like to call the intersection of frontier technology and enterprise use cases, right? So the way we look at it is we're the intersection of deep tech and enterprise tech is the sweet spot that we play in. Think of it like people leveraging frontier tech to build solve specific problems for enterprise today. And that's the space that we understand intuitively. Just on the fund, me and Rajiv, two partners who founded this, and this was based on significant time in the enterprise world, consulting large enterprises in the technology space, providing solutions to large enterprises, and then stepping over to the VC world, and then realizing that the Indian VC ecosystem did have a lot of players actually focusing on investing in solutions which are frontier tech for enterprise. So that is what led us to basically creating this fund. Just on the fund per se, we are again, like Arjun mentioned, very similar. We're a seed fund, invest really early. We've done 6 investments so far, 2 more in the pipeline. So out of 6 investments, the time that we went in, 5 of them were pre-revenues, 4 of them were just about building a prototype, and that's the stage we typically go in. Check sizes, the median check size tends to be in the range of around, say, 400 to 500K, right? So and we've gone in really early, we've gone in much lower as well, but that tends to be the median amount of investment that we would do in a particular firm. Just going back, Vinod was specifically talking about one of the investments. I'll give you a flavor of one investment we've done, and that will probably contextualize what we do. So we've invested in a company which is basically into object intelligence. Again, this is something that we've done together with Special. Arjun, who was just mentioning, who was there earlier on. So what this company does is basically building something that will push the frontiers of robotic automation. And quite simply put, what it helps is basically build out a solution that can help robots actually pick up misaligned objects, realign them, and place them, which today is in some ways pushing the frontier of object intelligence per se, which will be a big benefit for the robotic world. So that's a flavor of one investment we have done. We have done medtech investment, we've done another robotic investment, we've done typical SaaS kind of investment. We also done a fintech investment as well. So Rali, this is the kind of companies that we've done. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Arun, for that. I think the robotic company that you mentioned remains a favorite of mine, and I think Arjun was in yesterday. The
Yeah, I
founder.
think we would have liked you to join in the round as well, Vinod. But anyway.
Yeah, I wish it was in the future now. Anyway, having said that, I think it's great to see these companies, especially on robotics and rocket science, and that's happening out of India. And I think our objective, is to just shine light on both these companies and investors who are taking those large bets in the current ecosystem, right? I think that kind of shows, that we are almost ready to kind of play along with the world. If not, the next Elon Musk potentially can come from India, or probably the Agnikul guy is already Elon Musk. So I think that's those are interesting stories coming out of India. So I go to Deepak. Deepak has been a good old friend of mine. And he's been in the ecosystem, I think, longer than I think all of us in some sense in the venture and in the investing ecosystem. And Deepak's company is surprisingly not as nobody sees them as deep tech, but I kind of when I look at the companies that they've invested, like Simule or Level Networks, all of them talk about it without really telling that they're deep tech. In some sense, a very underestimated deep tech investor in my view, which is IdeaSpring. And I kind of like that how they operate slightly under the radar, but they're doing their job phenomenally well. And then I leave it to Deepak now, so that he can take us through what's happening at IdeaSpring, how are they approaching investing, and run us about one company that he thinks is interesting to listen to. Yeah. Great.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vinod. Thanks for the opportunity, as well as for having me here. And then thanks for the co-panelists, Arun and Arjun. So I think we're not obviously very different from what Arjun and Arun have already described. But obviously, I'll take it as a feedback that whatever you told, that we should be out in the market talking about our investment thesis as well as the deep tech. So definitely, and that's the job specifically is being deciding on me. So then I'll take that as a feedback. So
all in good humor, Deepak. Yeah.
Absolutely. I know. Thanks for that. So as I said, not very different from what Arjun and Arun do. We also started the fund about 4 years ago with the same kind of a thesis that at that point in time when we started, there was no specific fund which was looking at specifically into this area of early stage enterprise product startups, investing in that. So no specific fund was doing that. Obviously, there was bits and pieces were happening. There were a lot of funds which were looking at that, but not as a special focus. So and we thought that this particular area requires a special focus, and that's where we started. Obviously, the people who are associated with the fund are having years of experience in the domain, and obviously have the love for the enterprise space itself. So Arihan Patni, who is one of the anchor investor in the fund, as well as very active in the investment side, as well as looking at the startups. Naganand Doraswamy, who's the fund manager, and some of us like me and Surya Prakash, who are the actively managing the fund along with Naganand. So all of us, we love enterprise space. Is the other way to say also that we don't really understand the B2C side, consumer side, but enterprise definitely is something that we understand, we love, and that's where we invest in. So as I was describing, we look at early stage deep tech or enterprise product startups. In their early, we like to catch them in when they are probably even at the idea stage itself. Out of our 12 investments that we have done, or 13 investments that we have done so far, 3 of them are pre-product. Most of them are pre-revenue. Probably just one place wherein we have done the post-revenue, but most of the other places we have done pre-revenue investments. From a point of view of how early these investments are, you can see that, you know, a few places, I would say the product market fit itself has not been defined, but because we believe in the entrepreneur and the space itself, we have taken those bets. And that's what we like to do. I mean, one of the main focus of the fund has been to look at startups wherein the founders have a very strong domain, and then they have come up with something which you know, specifically for that particular domain defines the what they're doing in that startup. So we look at a lot of the startups which are probably at the breakthrough technologies. So you know, I would probably give an example as well at a later date, but that's what the fund's focus has been. We look for a very strong validation from the customers as well. Now, when you don't have revenue, where is the custom coming in? So most of our startups, what they do is they start to engage with their customers very early on, even if they don't have a product, or even if they don't have a active beta that can be tried by the customers, but still they engage early. They try to understand what is the customer requirement, and then specifically when they are at the very alpha or beta stage, they engage, and then we try to also speak with those customers to understand whether at some point in time when the product is going to be ready, maybe 6 months or earlier than that, would they pay for it. So those are the specific engagement that we look at. In terms of the spaces that we have done or even like is, as some of the spaces already been talked about by Arun Arjun, is that AI, ML is definitely one of the space. Robotics is one of the space wherein obviously it has gotten a lot more, you know, focus in the current scenario, but at the same time, it's always been a love for us. We look at one of the very core spaces is around the voice. Any kind of articulation around that is something that we are excited about. Health tech is another area. We haven't done anything so far. We are doing one investment in the life science space, but health tech is a core area. We have looked at a couple of startups. Nothing has come up so far that we could take a bet on, but definitely soon we would love to do something there. Medical devices is another area that we've been keenly looking at, even have engaged with a few startups. But yes, I mean,
yeah.
To define our the theme as well, that so one startup I would in particular like to talk about it, Voxago. So Voxago is founded by Ramesh Srinivasan along with 4 other gentlemen who have been on this journey of employee productivity using the deep tech technology or the behavioral science technology. So what they try to understand for an enterprise, let's say if there are some 50,000 odd employees, what would specifically work for each and every employee in terms of the nudge or the motivation that you would call it, by understanding their specific behavior patterns. So let's say if somebody has been motivated by, let's say, the incentives, is somebody motivated by the competition, is somebody motivated by the just the reward of being in the limelight. So this particular product understands the this traits at the individual level, and then defines that, you know, what could be the nudge that could be provided to him at that particular time to make him perform much better. It's like in personal coach for each and every individual is something that Voxago has been getting, specifically in current scenario. They've been getting a lot of traction. They are obviously, because we've been at the cusp of wherein most of the people are being not able to get that kind of a coaching. They are the one who've been helping a lot of the enterprises as well. So that's the one area that obviously including the other portfolio as well. That's one specifically I wanted to highlight. But yeah, excited about this space.
Thanks, Deepak, for taking us through, what you work on, in this interesting and exciting company that you already invested in. Um, I just want, as a moderator, just I won't take so much time, but I'll try and wrap up a very short introduction of myself and Java Capital. Java Capital is a baby. It was just born in May as we speak. We are syndicate investment firm as we speak. Hope to grow into a larger fund or a seed fund in the future. Look forward to that. And we are excited about deep tech and enterprise B2B SaaS, and we're also going to work on healthcare and fintech. These are some areas that we're going to work on. And our typical check sizes are going to be, anywhere between 150K to about 250K first checks as much as possible. We are open to leading, and we are also open to co-investing with my friends on the panel here, and other friends. That's something that we'd consciously keep doing. We believe also that at this stage, it kind of helps, especially in a crisis scenario, or in scenarios where there's cash flow current scenario. I think very open to co-investing as such. And we try and look for sweet spot valuations of anywhere between sub $3 to $4 million. And we are excited on this deep tech space, especially we're looking at a lot of AI companies, remote productivity, and these are areas that currently we are excited in very well-looking companies. And this pre-seed, seed stage investments, that's what we're going to kind of focus on. Currently, we've just started, no portfolios yet, but in the past, our partners have invested in companies such as Daily Ninja, Trell, Vernacular, companies like Slintel, a bunch of other companies, and that's what we kind of look forward to working in these areas, and some themes under these areas as Java Capital. So that's about it. Let's jump into some Q&A here, right? I mean, that's the most exciting part. I've told all my panelists that we're going to have some fun today. So I'll just start off, with starting, this fundamental question, right? That keeps getting asked. Okay, if you tell, I'm a deep tech fund, what does it mean? Or I'm focusing on deep tech, what does it mean? Maybe I'll throw this at Arjun. I mean, because you've done really rocket science companies, right? So I'll throw this at you and say, I mean, how do you put deep tech? I mean, is it disruptive? Is it deep tech? How would you define that, right?
Fair question, and something we're also learning and figuring out, right? I think this domain, comes with multiple tags, right? Deep tech is one of them. I think Arun used frontier tech, which is also relevant. Right, innovative, disruptive, let's say science-led tech is also another thing, right? So one has to look at this with multiple lenses, right? The crux, I think, for us to say is whatever domain and whatever technology is being built has a reasonably future outlook, is not yet gotten proven yet, right, is in the realm of something that the next 5 to 10 years is going to bring, right? And it is on a spectrum and on a trajectory which is moving towards making something happen or making something enabled, which wasn't possible 5 years ago or 10 years ago, right? So I think the technology curve and the spectrum is something that, is an important aspect to look at in deep tech / frontier tech, saying that saying that this is where the world is moving in terms of these capabilities being possible because of certain ecosystem enablements that are happening today, right? And if we notice the last 5 to 10 years, we've had cloud being a large innovation quotient, right? infrastructure has moved to the cloud from being on-premise, right? And a lot of innovation has been driven because of that. The other thing about Moore's law leading to innovation in the type of chips that get made and the computation power that has increased, which again I think we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years has had immense improvements, right? That's another example of what is enabled. AI is a primary outcome, or AI companies are a primary outcome of computation having become easier and possible today, which was not possible 10 years ago, right? Otherwise, AI as a concept probably has been talked about for many, many years, maybe upwards of 15, 20 years, right? In just different contexts. We were calling it data science then we started calling it big data, then we started calling it AI, but it has been driven by chips being made possible because of Moore's law getting better, and then other innovations happening at that level, right? And neural networks being possible for computation power, right? So for us, core definition is it is not some technology that is already well penetrated and well utilized in the market today. It is part of a technology evolution curve where the use case will evolve over the next coming years, and that other pieces of the puzzle are coming into play in terms of the hardware, in terms of other capabilities of software, etc., coming together for this particular piece of technology to be possible to be built today, which is not possible yesterday. And therefore, I think, like Deepak mentioned in the past, it is very important for the founders to also have come from a certain background and from a certain domain/industry where they have worked on this technology curve. Therefore, they come with a unique insight of why this is possible and why this is possible today, right? Why now? The why now question is very relevant in deep tech, right? We've all, experienced and seen a lot of things, or at least seen a lot of things and heard a lot of things in sci-fi, right? The reality is sci-fi becoming reality and coming closer and closer is what we are all trying to catch and capture, right? Right? What we saw maybe as kids 30 years ago, right? And said, wow, look at this, but that was sci-fi, it's probably started happening today, right? And for us to realize whether today is the right time or is it 5 years later the right time for some of these technologies is the complexity in identifying deep tech in the flavor that we look at it, right? We don't believe anything is impossible, right? But as investors, timelines and timing of how we see this curve playing out and which aspect of innovation can be solved today, and with reasonable degree of confidence and certainty, can this also be taken to commercialization? Let us not forget that technology for the sake of technology is not what we are after. We want to make sure that this innovation can be built out, can work, and then can be commercialized, which is the holy grail, right? And then over a period of time, it goes to the masses, and there is mass adoption of certain things, right? These are some flavors. It's a broad definition. There's no pinpointed definition. But these are some factors that we look at when we say, okay, this is what constitutes deep technology.
So Arun, do you want to add something? I thought you were looking to add something there.
Yeah, I mean, so I broadly agree with Arjun, right? Deep tech is a word that's been used. It's a very broad catch-all word, right? The way I would define it is basically saying deep tech, basically looking at something that's someone who's building something that's highly protectable, right? I mean, and it's very difficult to replicate, right? So these two characteristics, I think, are important when you say deep tech. It's protectable, it's difficult to replicate, but also beyond that, it actually provides significant advances in some specific field, right? So that's I think how I would characterize it. But again, this definition also, if you look at it, can encompass multiple areas. I mean, you can do biotech, medtech, semiconductors. Arjun talked about semiconductors. Lots of stuff happening on materials. Lots of stuff happening on computing. I mean, there was someone who was asking about brain-machine interface in the questions recently. So all of this can be categorized as deep tech, right? So typically, there's a wide spectrum. Now, as VCs, at least as Arali, what we look at is we look at something that is, and all of these. Okay, the other characteristic of these typically is, if you look at startups in this, there's a huge engineering risk involved, right? In terms of building it out. And engineering risk is, can you actually build out something? So that's another characteristic of deep tech companies. And VCs who are actually betting on the space bet on engineering risk much more than market risk. So from our perspective, we would probably look at companies that are having actually some amount of engineering risk, but also there is some amount of market risk. So maybe we are, say, one step lower in the chain in terms of really deep tech plays, because we are not purely looking at companies which only have engineering risk, for example. That's also because the function of the market today, there are not enough later stage investors. The ecosystem is not that developed for really and I guess Arjun will differ very vehemently with me, but that's our read. We look at companies which are maybe slightly less on the visionary side, pioneering tech or frontier tech, but have also creating something for the market, and there is some amount of market risk involved. So that's how I would define it.
Sure. No, I think,
no disagreement, Arun. Not much disagreement. Just more hopeful that other people will follow if we take the lead.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping this small talk leads to big monies for all of us. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Deepak, I just want you to think of now that we've spoken of these deep tech companies, right? I mean, are you seeing any fundamental change now? We have this COVID situation. Are you seeing any fundamental change, especially a lot of focus on healthcare, because of the current crisis? Are you seeing any change, that's going to rapidly happen, because of this, especially on deep tech space? And people are like, thinking, Anderson Horowitz, coming out and saying, let's build for the world. Now, obviously, they do Clubhouse also, but they're also building biotech companies on the side. We are all talking of Clubhouse on the Twitter, but we're not talking about the biotech companies that kind of getting funded on a large scale as we speak, right? Are you seeing the changes, or do you see how is that going to play out, Deepak, in next quarters or maybe years also? Because this current crisis is going to leave a deep impact on all of us across the humanity.
So maybe just one quick comment I would add to what Arjun and both Arun said around the deep tech. So I think I agree more towards Arjun than Arun around the having that the technology curve evolved, and then you have the people who have been kind of building and having the domain in certain specific areas, and then building those breakthrough technologies. Is something that specifically for I'm saying that for Idea Spring Capital is something wherein our love lies. We have seen other areas as well, but at the same time, people who have come back from let's say having a very specific domain or the research. Like one of the example is one of the startups, Simyo, which has been a result of more than 5 years of research in that space, in the automotive space, and then Dipanjan has come out of ISC and then built this startup along with some of the other co-founders. So I think this is the play specifically for Idea Spring is in the deep tech space. In terms of the current situation, I think definitely there is a move towards getting more and more innovation out of the door, rather than waiting it for maybe for the timing is right, or whether we have the right market for it, or even in certain particular cases whether we really going to make money out of this or not. So I think that is what we see. I mean, if you see in the last 2 weeks itself, probably we had news from 4 different spheres have come about the vaccine for coronavirus. So I think this has never been happened in the history, if you believe so. And then that's what kind of a very prime example of seeing that how much the whole world is innovating at this time, even collaboratively or individually or some or the other form, to make this happen for the overall humanity. And then in certain spaces obviously it would happen as a corporate, so you probably try to make some money out of it, but at the same places there are places wherein people have been innovating so that it everybody could probably benefit of it. So it could be a small or a big innovation, but I would say that not only in the deep tech areas, but everybody, I think, in some or the other form is been trying to innovate. Maybe it's a big or a small innovation that is happening, but I think, and that's where I think the deep tech is also getting more and more prominence in this space.
I think, I think that's a valid thought, Deepak. It's across the sectors that you're seeing, not necessarily that, we're talking of only deep tech, the current impact is, I think, we have 15 minutes, I'll just shoot one more question, and then maybe, there's a lot of hands being raised and questions coming through. So we have like 15, 20 minutes. So let's try and, get to the Q&A faster. This question, I want to address from the founder's perspective. That I want you guys to address it from the founder's perspective, right? As investors in these companies, right, especially in the current scenario, right, are you seeing, things changing for the entrepreneur? Let's say if I am a deep tech entrepreneur, right, if I'm approaching any of us in the panel, right, what do I need to think now? Are you evaluating companies very differently now? Is there a shape shift in your strategy, or, in valuations, in your ownerships, what should the entrepreneur be aware of now with the current scenario, that when he's approaching any of you for investment? Probably Arun, you should take that, and then I'll ask Arjun to add to it.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if you compare the situation, say 4 or 5 years ago to what it is today, I think it's much better place for entrepreneurs to be, especially people who are building deep tech or deep tech or frontier tech kind of solutions, right? The one thing that I will ask entrepreneurs to do, I mean, there is like I said, there are players like Arjun, there is Idea Spring, where Deepak represents, a couple of other people actually invest. They're not shying away from investing in deep tech ideas. So to that extent, entrepreneurs basically have a much better pool of funding options today. The one thing that I would leave as a message entrepreneurs is, this is a long-term game, and this basically, I know, is probably much more difficult than building a consumer-facing app, which takes, from an engineering side, it takes very little effort, relatively, right? So what I would want you to see is, while you're building that, we also want you to go back and focus on, what is the market acceptability of that? Just start thinking about that. It's difficult to do, but it actually enables us, for VC investors, to go back and say, okay, while you're building out something which is valuable, also in parallel, there is some amount of validation that this is something that is desired by the market. Lots of times we see entrepreneurs building out a product because it's technologically superior, and then trying to go back and impose it on a market which might be ready, might not be ready, right? So, and it's also not it's also in the interest of the entrepreneur to say, okay, I have built something, how can I monetize it? That has to be a parallel hand-in-hand process, and that would be my advice. Having said that, we know that we understand that this process takes time. We are more than happy to basically wait for you to build out the product, even if it takes 2 to 3 years to build it out, get it into a shape. But the thinking has to be from the beginning, saying, what are you building towards?
Sure.
So that would be my point in terms of, even for deep tech entrepreneurs, don't disregard the market just because you're building something which is frontier tech.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, Arjun, is this a different view that you have on this specifically? I mean, the current scenario, has it changed dramatically or not? No, it's fine. I'm doing my job as usual.
Of course, I will not say things are business as usual, right? There's definitely, the world has changed in a way that we all, are learning to live with, and we will also find out more. It's been 3 months. There's a lot more to evolve and a lot more to learn. That's the reality, right? 2 points I'd like to make on the deep tech side itself. First point is what hasn't changed, right? And I think a little bit was alluded by both my friends, right? To say, in general, deep tech is a patience game, right? Both for the investor as well as for the entrepreneur, right? Because it is something that is future looking. It takes time to build. It is hard to build. You need to get your team together. You need to get experts together. You need to do some research before the development itself, right? It is in general a long journey. And after that, the complexity, like Arun mentioned, of going to market itself, right? And getting early adopters in, right? When something is future looking, you need to find your customers to have little more flexibility in being the early adopters, right? So all of these factors don't necessarily change for the deep tech entrepreneur. They continue to need to have that patience, long-term view, and find solutions for each of these risks, right? Technology risk, and then the customer adoption, early adoption risk, team risk, because getting the right people, because deep tech by default means there is complexity in what has to be built out, which means you need to get domain and industry and technology experts or to come and join you on the core team. Not only the founding team, but also the first few engineers that they need to hire is complex, right? For example, one of our portfolio companies with 2 founders for the longest time, even now after close to a year of this thing, they only have 1 engineer, right? Because it's been so hard to hire and they're super picky and choosy because of the complexity of what they're trying to build, right? So that all of these are challenges in general that I think continue to stay. So stay strong, stay true to what you're trying to solve, right? Is the first part I would like. Point 2, which is very relevant, which is we're talking about what has changed, right? What has changed in the ecosystem is overall individual human behavior as well as business behavior. Because we are at the start and probably in the middle, we don't know which step of a recession, which we have not seen for a substantial period of time, right? And given the health situation of the virus itself, and mobility has been impacted, how we work has been impacted, how factories will work in the future is going to change, how offices work is going to change, how healthcare, drug development is going to happen, right? These are the changes that are just starting to show up, right? So therefore, as a deep tech entrepreneur, one has to take this into cognizance to say, how will my prospective consumer customer, right, change his behavior in the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? And therefore is my technology and the solution that is built around the technology, how can this be packaged, bundled, and provided to the end customer in the way that it can get best adopted, right? So this change of behavior pre-COVID and post-COVID, right, has to be taken into account now into their mindset of who will use, how they will use, and when they will use, and what they will pay for it, right? These priorities, I believe, are changing and will continue to change. Of course, I don't think we are in a static phase, and therefore we know exactly how the change has been. Right? The important thing is to, like Arun said, continue to keep talking to prospective customers to understand how their behavior is changing yesterday versus today, so that you can adapt how you are going to, what you're going to build a little bit. Of course, the core technology, maybe that's your expertise, you stick to that, but how do you package it? How do you position this product? And then finally, how do you communicate the value of this and make them adopt it, right? That is the way I would look at changing of the guard or ecosystem in this time.
Great, Arjun. That's insightful. Both Arun and Arjun on that. I think there's a bunch of questions. I think for paucity of time. Let me jump to some of the questions that we've got. Deepak, maybe you. I'll start with the question for you. Are you seeing any interesting trends in deep tech? That seems to be. Everybody wants to know. At least I see 3-4 questions on that. Any interesting trends that you believe would become big in 2020, 21, and I think adding along with that, are still lagging, compared to the Western markets. What would be your thoughts on that?
So that, I think the later question that you just said, I think it's been quite vehemently been asked by many people that, whether we lag. Definitely we lag. Definitely, things are not as the same as, let's say, what happens in the Silicon Valley. But I think the catching up has been happening much faster than what it had been in the earlier years. I think the way we as entrepreneurs or our entrepreneurs think, I think probably is almost the 100% the way that a Silicon Valley entrepreneur think today. So that's the change that has happened in the last couple of years. And I think the catching up that has been happening is because it's been fast. I would say that in the specific to deep tech domain, I don't think that we are any different from any of those Silicon Valley startups now versus what we used to be, let's say, probably 5 or 10 years earlier. So that, I think the fundamental shift has already happened, and it's been improving more and more. That I would like to say. From a perspective of what has been happening in the deep tech domain, or what we are seeing more often, is that I think given the situation we are in, and given the virus has been on our doors, I've been seeing more and more startups approaching in the space of robotics, let's say, or healthcare or health tech domain. People who've been, thinking more and more around what to do around not touching the surfaces or not touching or gesture kind of technologies, which are being kind of taking more and more prevalent. So in the last few months itself, we have seen many startups which are being around those areas, and been people who have been kind of really becoming more and more innovative around that. So specifically in the health tech domain as well, there are people who are specifically getting traction in the areas wherein they can do, let's say, a post-care kind of a solution, which may not be available at the hospitals, and hospitals obviously have to be releasing their patients sooner and sooner. So because of that, the post care becomes more and more important. And then with that post care, could you have something which is you could track remotely? Maybe it could be telemedicine, or it could be some other ways of tracking your patients or their vitals remotely. So that has become more and more evidently prominent. That's what we're seeing. Again, as I said, robotics is one of the key area of interest as well. At the same time, we've been seeing more and more startups which are innovatively thinking around those, specifically not on the touching on the surfaces.
Got it. So I think,
so if I can add, Vinod, quickly.
yeah. Go ahead.
So I mean, I probably will differ with Deepak on a couple of points. He says on a couple of, I mean, it's a nuanced this thing. So let me just explain. He mentioned that we are in some ways we're similar to where Silicon Valley is today in terms of innovation, especially deep tech. I'd like to differ there with a caveat, right? I think personally the entrepreneur quality is probably just the same, right? So if you take a entrepreneur here who actually understands his domain, is building something, and take an entrepreneur there, I think the entrepreneur quality is just the same. What difference that what advantage they have is for every, say, 3 deep tech funds here, like say an Arali, like a Speciale, like a Idea Spring, there are 40 funds there, right? For every IIT Madras incubation center here, they have 20 incubation centers there. For every corporate venture arm that's active here, there are 40 corporate venture arms that are active there. So to that extent, I think, and that translates into more pilots, more understanding of what corporates are building, more. So that I think is the difference. Having said that, I agree with Deepak. We are catching up fast, right? I mean, in the last 5 years, last 3-4 years, this space has moved quantumly in terms of the ecosystem. But we're still at some distance away. We're probably 5 years away in terms of having the same kind of innovation that's coming out of here. For example, Israel is probably caught up already, but we are probably 5-6 years away, is my guess, right? And just to add, I totally agree with Deepak's point on robotics. I mean, we have a robotics company in our portfolio that's seeing significant interest because in the new world, there is going to be significant focus, is what we think, on robotics. Anything that's to do with industrial automation as well is seeing significant interest. Anything that's to do with med devices, new age med devices, med tech, is again seeing a lot of interest. And I think those are the areas that will be of significant interest going forward.
No, I think, I was reading last couple of days, right? The government also, right? There's some question around that. The government also is starting to open up both the defense sector in a big way. The privatization of space, that's in a big way that's happening, right? Those are some of the good things because of this crisis, right? I hope, that's going to add us like a booster dose for some of the innovations that can come out of this country. And hopefully, that kind of opens the market even in India in a large way. I think, there are some specific questions, and since, we just have 2 minutes, right? One last question, and let's try and wrap it up. Any of you can take this question. Why are there less interest from Indian, venture capital or money going into Indian hardware companies or deep tech companies, in some form, that's what they're asking, hardware when they say. I think, why is it, less money, what's holding us, bringing more money into this country for, deep tech innovations? What's happening? I think one of you can take that, whoever wants to.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a shot or? Arjun,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll take a shot.
yeah.
Right. I think obviously it is far from what is desired by entrepreneurs, right? The VCs will always lack the entrepreneurs. That is something I believe, right? The more entrepreneurs that come through, the more VCs will take note that this is a segment which needs attention, and I need to allocate capital, right, in this domain, right? So obviously there is a lag, right? I think all three of us here are in that bucket that do invest in this. We are hopefully doing our little bit in that direction, right?
Yeah.
Lots more needs to be done, right? So the crux is about, for any domain or anything to move forward at certain velocity and pace, like we've seen in the West or anything, one needs to have an ecosystem around it, right? And that is what is happening, but has happened as a slower pace than we would all like, right? Hardware typically comes with complexities of hardware product design, which has not been a skill set that has largely been available in this country many years ago, right? That is increasing now, right? So that's a positive signal. Hardware also typically means you need materials and components that are there, right, to build early prototypes. And also, therefore, multiple prototype building is part of the pain to go through to build a hardware product, which again means longer gestation period, which is a patience game, which we have not historically had, right? Because of the nascency of the ecosystem, right? So building prototypes, how do we accelerate building of prototypes, learn from that, and have the right skill sets to go through multiple prototypes to get to a commercial product, right? Is a complexity that is inherent in hardware, right?
Right.
And the ecosystem, you can have a small manufacturing, we have a automobile manufacturing ecosystem, but that is to do things at scale, right? Once you have a ready product, you can manufacture things at tens of thousands and millions of units, right? But what do you do when you have to do 1 unit, 3 units, 5 units, and iterate over it and work with designers, work with foundry shops and things like that, depending on material, where does the supply chain come in, right? Which of this comes from China, right? Which will have other ramifications going forward, right? So hardware has talent as a background, problem statement historically, and the ability to iterate, right? Software iteration, you can change code every day. You can, break things fast culture,
Yeah.
right? That does not work in hardware.
Hardware.
There's a complexity, there's a patience that is needed. That is the hard part of building, hardware, and therefore investing in that. Having said that, again, like I said, I think talent is also coming through, right? There are enough people, or a lot of people, who have built products globally and they're now locally, who are understanding what the complexities are. And there's a little bit of the ecosystem that is coming to play. There are maker labs, there are, educational institutes that are providing their labs. There are government-backed programs that are providing infrastructure, right? That is the challenge of being a smaller, less mature ecosystem. We don't have capital enough to build our own labs, right? Going back to this rocket science example, Elon Musk can raise money to build his own infrastructure, his own labs, and his own manufacturing capability.
Yeah.
Right? Here we have to figure out in the early days, where can we get this infrastructure available to us or for the entrepreneur so that he can build this out at low cost. Nobody's going to give somebody 20, 25, $30 million in the early stage to build out a lab, right? To test out various hypotheses and various product building, right? These complexities are there, but I think some pieces of the ecosystem and the puzzle are coming together, right? And we're quite hopeful that I think that can solve the problem. Will it obviously be at the pace that is there in the West? No. But I think there is more hope now than any time in the past, for sure.
I think this that's great. Maybe I'll just one wrap. Let's each of one turn. Maybe Arun. One last wrap. What do you want to say on the deep tech space or something? You want to leave some last words for entrepreneurs in the deep tech space?
Yeah, so I would say where deep tech today is basically the 2008-9 of consumer tech we see in India, right? So I think we are at that point. So I would say that I would expect large companies to be built out in this space because we have the entrepreneurs, the ecosystem is slowly building. It's not going to be easy, but I guess for entrepreneurs, my message is stay focused. It's a space that's evolving, and you can make your mark as long as you stay focused, stay lean, right? Understand the ecosystem you're working in. You might have to be frugal. It is not. It might be slightly lesser today in terms of opportunities than say a Silicon Valley startup. But if you stay focused, I think you can build out a big enough and a large enough venture for.
Got it. Deepak, last words.
Sure. So actually, kind of reiterating to the same point that what Arjun made earlier, that deep tech is a patience game for investor as well as the founder. So the thought to the founders is that obviously it takes time for you to build a valuable company in the deep tech space, and even more so now given the situation and given the adoption that going to be maybe delayed a bit. So you need to obviously stay the course. You need to look at your cash frugally. You need to see that probably the money might not come in that early than what you had thought earlier case was. So you have to stay the course. You have to also read the signals from the market, that if the market is telling you to probably go into a certain direction, you should be able to do that. I mean, given that we are in that kind of situation.
Hey, I think that's brilliant. I'll just add like one last line. I think, I think again, the papers have splashed with the news saying, SanDisk makes 1 TB micro disk out of India. That kind of shows, the talent and the engineering prowess that we have. And it's only a matter of maybe months or, I would say years rather, when, such things, will come from Indian companies, or, fundamental innovation starts happening and breakthroughs starts happening in this country. Look forward to it. We would also, be part of this journey. Hopefully, all of us, going to encourage these entrepreneurs. The small talk, results into large outcomes for everybody involved. And thankful to each of you. Thanks, Arun. Thanks, Arjun. Thanks, Deepak, for sparing time on a Thursday morning. And I just feel doing these panels has become easier given we don't need to travel in Bangalore. Extremely thankful. Wonderful having you all on the session. I hope all the entrepreneurs also benefited. And any of you want to reach out to us, I think you can go to our websites or our. I'm hoping on our LinkedIn profiles you'll find our contacts and email IDs. If you want to reach out to any of us for your companies, feel free to reach out. Look forward to the next session, in a couple of months, hopefully. Thank you all. Thank you. Wonderful having you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinod, for having us.
Thanks, Vinod. Thanks, Deepak.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Deepak, Arun.